Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Career Focus series on the Success Insight podcast. The Career Focus series supports individuals pursuing careers that tap into their skills and passions and introduces you to the entrepreneurs and companies helping to make that dream a reality. Our guest today is Amy Hagstrom. Amy is a fiction writer focusing on book club suspense literary novels, and she is also a former member of the Outdoor Writers Association of America. That's how I met her. And also the Society of American Travel Writers. Amy, it's a pleasure to have you on the Career Focus series on the Success Insight podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Howard.
Fantastic. Now, I do have to ask, where are you right now?
I am in sunny Ajijic, Mexico, which is outside of Guadalajara in the state of Jalisco, Mexico.
Fantastic. And I can only imagine beautiful weather, great food, and just a wonderful community.
Yes, we are discovering that the community here is so warm and welcoming and understanding of our beginning Spanish and generally just a really nice way of life here.
Very nice. Very nice. Now, you and I met via the Outdoor Writers Association of America and the we were online and the Facebook page, the OWAA's Facebook page. And I was, I think, originally interested in some of your outdoor writing, but then you kind of threw a curveball at me. You said, Howard, I'm not doing this anymore. And so what I would love if you could, for our listeners, and especially our folks that are going through career changes, there's so much churn around the world right now. People are doing work that they don't like to do. There's layoffs still happening. There's layoffs that are hidden by performance appraisals. Well, they got to perform for performance appraisal. Okay, we're going to let you go now, which was just another way to do a layoff. So we're constantly looking for new careers. And as a coach, I also believe in careers that give us health, give us hope, give us happiness. And so I would love if you could share a little bit about your background, but I also want to hear about this pivot to becoming a fiction writer. So I've given you a
Sure.
lot to chew on. So this is your show right now.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I spent over a decade in travel writing and I love it. I love traveling. I still love traveling. I started in that career because of a journalism career I had, and when I had kids, I took time off of that full-time career, and then I still wanted to travel with my kids. So I created a travel writing career for myself. Let's see, around 2010. And um, as they got older, I started doing more adventure travel. That's where we started connecting, and soft adventure for families and um, mostly destinations in North America and Central America, some Europe. And um, I was feeling before COVID that was maybe phasing out because the kids get older and bigger and busier. And I was starting to write some fiction and had a hard time fitting everything into the day. Um, During the pandemic, as we all know, travel screeched to a halt temporarily. And it was a good moment for me to reassess what should I be doing during this time period since I just got my income taken out from underneath me, and how can I use this time as a way to pivot maybe more gracefully than I would have otherwise. And it kind of gave me a kick in the pants to try something new during that time.
So it's interesting. Your story, your why, that aha moment came about because of a good part COVID, and all of a sudden our livelihood went away even for a short time. And it sounded like it just rekindled this love of fiction and fiction writing and how to make that
Hmm.
happen. Uh,
Yeah.
what gave you the most satisfaction. And by the way, I would imagine travel writing has changed and what gets produced. And the reason I say that is I can't go on to a website that's giving me lots of articles and there's a top 10 this, top 10 that. Here's the six things that I take with me when I go on a 3-day vacation. Okay. I mean, I
Yeah.
can't, and and it seems like everybody's doing it. And as a
Hmm.
travel writer, an accomplished travel writer, your bread and butter is the word. And it sounds
Hmm.
like that word used to be, I don't know, the Capitol Grill in the past, and now it's more like going through McDonald's fast food. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, yeah, with the rise of it started really with making sure everything was SEO friendly, and then, of course, I mean, we won't even get started on AI and all the, headaches there, but I definitely wrote my share of listicles and top 10 da 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 da, and I always found that for me, the reason why I love travel writing is I fall in love with places. I always start with a place that captures me and I want to write about it. And so I was always a lengthy writer. And you're correct that in this market right now with most articles and websites, there's less of a place for that. I'm not saying there's no place for that because certainly travel essays are still valuable and I hope they remain forever. But I started realizing that I was inspired to write more about the places I fell in love with, and so I was starting to write fiction long before I stopped my travel writing
Okay.
career, but that gave me that moment during, the pandemic gave me that chance to really refocus and reprioritize what type of writing was speaking to me.
Okay. And how
Yeah.
does the outdoor and travel writing and that experience and the expertise, how has that informed what is going to go into your fiction writing?
Mhm. Well, it's funny because I have a critique group, which most fiction writers do, of people who will help work with you along the way. And I heard at the beginning a lot, well, this sounds like a travel guide. And it's supposed to be fiction because I just can't help but put things in that inspire me and I would like to like really paint a picture of where I am. So I start with a place that usually that I have discovered through travel writing. I have written 4 manuscripts. I have 2 in process of being published, but I have 4 completed and every one of them is set in a place that I became enchanted with either well, the very first one is a place I grew up in, but other than that, all places that I traveled to and got to write a small blog post or 2 or listicle about, and then found I really wanted to write a lot more about that place. And so that sense of place grounds me, and the destination really becomes a character. And when I realized that, I realized I should be writing fiction.
There you go. Very good. Are
Yeah.
you open to sharing, perhaps I mean, you have a new book, which I do want to, chat more about while between us, but say your first book and one of the places you were just enchanted with, how did you go about incorporating it into the story and then creating these characters that are going to be interwoven around it?
Mhm. Well, it kind of depends on the destination. So, for an example, in The Wild Between Us, which is my debut novel, it is set in the Northern California Sierra Nevada mountains, which most people are familiar with as a general construct, but it's a very rural area. And I decided to make a fictitious town in that real place to make sure that I had the freedom to do the story I wanted to create and still honor the area. And so there'll be real places listed within the fake place I created. So
Okay.
that was an editorial decision from my team in the publishing of the novel. But I have another one that is set in Grand Teton National Park area. And that one I stayed really true to the place. And it's fictitious people and there's actually a fictional ranch there, but everything else is the place because if it's somewhere that people already know, I want to champion that place and be able to explain through fiction, hopefully why it inspires people to go visit.
Okay. I'm curious with the debut novel, this fictional place that you have created within the real area. Inside this town, there are people doing lots of things and the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever. There's the restaurants, there's the businesses that support the locals. How do you begin to craft not only the people interaction, but put them into settings that are very realistic and are going to serve to move your story along?
That's a good question. I think you start with what's true, and then you have to massage that enough that it's no longer real life.
Mhm.
And to do that, I pictured a very real small town, and then I just transformed this, that, and the other. Instead of this store, it's that one. Instead of this person, it's another person. And so that's where the little blurb at the beginning of any novel comes into play, where it's any resemblance is purely coincidental. Da 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 da. But some people who are from that area, who have read a advanced copy of that book, have been excited to see where they live kind of represented, even though they know it's not the real name of the place, and but they can recognize elements of it.
Mhm.
That would be different if I was writing about something that was going to cast a very negative light on a certain place, but this was not the case for this book, so it wasn't something I had to think about changing things significantly.
Okay. Besides the location and these towns that have given you or areas that have given you this pleasure, who's your target audience for your writing?
Well, my writing now with fiction, my target audience is probably anyone who likes to read, like book club reads, certainly people who like soft adventure and the outdoors and nature, but also like to read upmarket fiction. So
Okay.
it's probably a demographic of middle aged um, women
Okay.
mostly. I mean,
Okay.
hopefully everyone, but yeah.
Okay. And you've used some terms like book club reads. That I'm sure I've heard the term before, but let's imagine I haven't. What does that mean?
It means that it's usually a novel that's going to follow kind of an emotional journey or arc within it. So, in addition to being either a mystery or a suspense or a romance or action type of novel, it needs to have a development from beginning to end with the protagonist that is um, showing a growth or an achievement or something toward the end. So it has to have another element than simply the action of or the whodunit or the romance. So
Okay.
it's an extra layer, and yeah, there's so many different ways to define types of genres of fiction, and they're always fluid, and I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock behind them.
All right. And the book is going to be coming out November 7th. So we're literally just over a month away,
Hmm.
about 5, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
What has gone into working with the publisher and the publicist to get the book out there? I mean, you're on my podcast, probably more so because you and I know each other through OWAA.
Hmm.
I get requests all the time from an author, "Hey, I'd love to be on your podcast." And it's like
Sure.
the last thing I need is another zombie apocalypse novel, okay?
Well, that's not what this one is.
All right. So, how do you go about working with a publisher, which means this is not a self-published book?
No,
Okay.
correct. It's a very long process, and it started long before I stopped writing in the travel sphere. But basically, I spent almost a decade trying to get an agent.
Mhm.
And I was doing that while travel writing, while working on a very first draft of what would become this novel. And after I got my agent, it took us another 2.5 years on what they call on submission, taking manuscripts, and the agent tries to sell them to publishers.
Mm.
So we tried actually two different manuscripts before this one, and hopefully they will still find a home one day, but not yet. So this was a process of over 10 years
Okay.
that because I felt strongly that I did want to go the traditional route versus self-published route, and I've a bunch of reasons for that, but one primary takeaway is that self-published works do work very well for people when they already have a big audience. So nonfiction, certainly travel, how-tos, anything where you're an expertise, you have expertise in your area and you already have a following, you can do very well. But fiction traditionally does not do very well self-published. Of course, there are exceptions, and everyone needs to do whatever works best for them.
Hmm.
But for me, I knew that I wanted the platform of a traditional publisher, so I went through all the hoops of the agenting and the publisher. So this book was picked up in 2021, and it went through a year of editorial and 3 different editors of different rounds of editorial, and then advanced copies, and final copy comes out in a few days, being ready for the November launch. So it's a
Okay.
very long process.
Sure. Yeah. And I was going to say it's like birthing a baby in a way.
It's
Um,
longer.
it's longer. So you work with an agent to find a publisher. You find a publisher, work with the editors, the editorial staff to get this thing to fruition. How do you promote a book like this? Besides being on my
Well,
podcast, by the way.
exactly. You're looking at it. I do have a publicist who helps, provided by my publisher, but many people don't. And luckily now, there are a lot of different ways with social media platforms to be able to promote. And getting to know other writers in your kind of genre or close to it can really help. So I'm in a few different Facebook groups and Slack groups of different writers, all having debuts come out around the same time. And we cross promote just as people do in travel and probably any other form of writing. So there's a lot of collaboration, which is really nice in this industry, at least on the author level.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, podcasts and blurbs from other authors makes a big difference. And um, being on websites and blogs and newsletters, just about anything. It's very hard to know what moves the needle and what doesn't.
Mhm.
But ultimately, sometimes you have to stop driving yourself crazy with the promotion and just think, I just need to keep producing product,
Yeah.
just keep writing and working because you can definitely spend a full time amount of work trying to
Sure.
promote whatever you're working on, of course.
Sure. Now, will
Yeah.
you do book readings or speak to clubs,
hmm
opportunities like that?
Yeah, a lot of the landscape of book launches changed during COVID, and so there's a lot more Zoom and online, and a lot less in-person events. So since I'm in Mexico, I'll probably do very few in-person events, but I will be doing a reading in my previous hometown of Oregon when it launches, and then I'm available for book clubs in person in Mexico here nearby or on Zoom, and that's a really fun process because book clubs can invite you, and I always provide a book for the host, and then there's time for Q&A and just hearing what people think of the book. It's really fun for me to have that gratifying moment,
Right.
so
Yeah, I'd
so I'll be
imagine you
doing
get
that.
to go to the back of the room afterwards with a square, up your phone and sell your book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm curious. The authors group that you spoke of earlier on. How
Mhm.
helpful has that been to work with other authors? They're accomplished. Some of them are aspiring
Mhm.
because they're new to this
Mhm.
journey. It's quite the journey.
Mhm.
What's it like working with them and getting feedback and saying, "Hey, man, I think I like this, but I think you should do more of this or do less of this." I mean, it's like tweaking a recipe in a way.
Right. Right. I think it's crucial, and it really helps to combat the isolation that can happen with any job where you're working remotely full time or
Mhm.
working from home. there's that potential of feeling like you're in a silo and you don't have feedback on a regular basis. And certainly that's true for writers. And when you're working on a project that maybe hasn't been picked up yet by a publisher, you don't have that external force with deadlines and yeah, et cetera, and feedback, positive or negative. So you need to create that for yourself, I believe. So critique groups or your writing groups can really provide that for you because then you have a deadline. Like I need to turn in the next chapters to my group at a certain amount of time. I'm going to get the feedback, and yeah, sometimes you have to weigh the feedback. So in my group, there's 6 of us. So if everyone agrees that it's unrealistic that XYZ happened in this chapter, I'm going to look at that and change it. If sometimes people are divided. Oh, I thought it was great. Oh, I didn't like it. No, I don't know what to do with that. I can just kind of flag it and kind of you have to make your own decision about it. Or if you have a agent or editor by that time, you can weigh that off of them. And so it's a definitely a process where you ultimately have to be true to what you want to write, but it can I don't think I would feel comfortable putting anything out even to an agent without having other eyes on it, knowledgeable, educated eyes on it project.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
If you came across an individual, maybe they're retired from AT&T, who knows?
Mhm.
Or they're just coming, they've been journaling ever since they were a young little kid and they're graduating college or
Mhm.
going to college and they want to be a writer. And they say, Amy, how did you do it? What advice would you give? What would your advice
Um,
be to an aspiring writer?
I think, my first advice would be to be, persistent. Set a amount of time that you can put aside each day. Don't have it be the last thing you do. Like, if you have time, you'll write. Have a designated time period or a designated word count that you need to do every day. And so you can get something on paper because the most intimidating part when you're starting is the idea of that looming a whole novel's worth of words. But if you break it down to even just 500 words a day, just get it down, get something down and prioritize it. Don't have it be the what's remaining of your day, even if you're working still full time. Set the alarm, have your time that you're going to work on this project to honor yourself and your time of doing this. And then definitely get a group, find a group that can also help you with that process and share their work with you. And don't worry so much about the industry stuff in those early days because you start thinking about, well, I need to write to this type of audience, or these are the books that are selling right now and these are not, or I hear an agent is looking for this, but not that. It'll just make you crazy and you're not going to be writing what you're passionate about in the first place. So just sit down and write every day.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So
If you hate it, it's not for you.
there you go. What's funny, I had a client a long time ago wanted to write blogs. It was like a New Year's resolution. And then it's like, I just can't get it done. And it's like, that's how this podcast, by the way, got started is,
Oh,
well,
okay.
why don't we just do a podcast and you'll have the interview, talk about what you want to write about. And then, and you, so you get you get a 2-for-1 deal. You get a podcast or your episode published and you can take the words and start crafting.
Right. Mhm.
So with your novel coming out while between us, November 7th, now if I recall when I was out on the Amazon site, you've got the paperback, you've got the Kindle. Thank you very
Mhm.
much for that, by the way. By the way, I when I get asked to, would love to be on your podcast, Howard, and then can we send you a copy of the book? And I'm like, I'd love you on the podcast and thank you so much, but I don't want a book. If you have a Kindle or electronic
Yeah,
version, as somebody
sure.
who wants to move, that's the last thing I know is need is another book
Exactly.
box.
Exactly.
So, and you're also going to have an audio book. So,
Sure. Mhm.
um, I like the idea of the audio book. But I'm curious what the reasoning was behind it. Because a lot of folks don't have that right away.
Right. Well, the publisher I have believes in putting everything out at the beginning.
Okay.
And I they're the experts. I don't know exactly why. It's an interesting process because I'm not really involved in the audiobook process other than listening to some voice talent read sections of the book and then being told, "But we know what we're doing, so don't input too much advice." And so I don't. I'm just waiting to see what comes of it, but I like it so far. But yeah, so all those formats are available. I read on Kindle as well, all the time. So
Okay.
and in libraries, etc. So there's
Very good.
always that option as well.
Excellent. And how does it feel that for you, the emotions, the excitement that November 7th is like, it's coming up?
It is. At first, it seemed so far away when I signed for this deal, and now it is really right here. So I'm very excited, a little bit nervous, of course, about it, and I'm just looking forward to celebrating this milestone. And just I'm going to try my best just to turn my attention to the next project and not look too much at at the success or non-success, etc.
Well, yeah, it's a milestone of success is it's been published
Yeah.
and how are you going to celebrate?
Well, I'm gonna be back in Oregon for a week, and, we're gonna have a launch party at a winery we know out there and invite anyone in our area to come visit and get books signed and buy books and, do a little reading, and so that'll be a really fun way to mark the occasion.
Okay. Okay. Now I'm curious too. You have three other projects now. Are you open to chatting about any of it? Or you want to keep it undercover?
Yeah.
What?
Well, no, I do have a second project that's already been, purchased under contract by the same publisher. So, and that book will come out in 2024. So, this first one is about two different search and rescue operations, 15 years apart, and the mystery that connects them in the mountains, like I mentioned in the Sierra Nevada, in Northern California. And the second one is based in rural Oregon during a wildfire season. And it's about two women who are on opposite sides of different types of emergencies during that wildfire. One is a river rafting um, captain, and one is a firefighter. So those are the two that I have coming out most recently. Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
And I know you have your website, and normally I would say if listeners would like to find out more about you and your work, where would you like them to go? But you do have the website,
Hmm.
amyhagstrom.com.
Hmm.
What would readers find or viewers find on that website once they get there?
So when you get there, you can, well, at the moment, pre-order or later after November, order the book via Amazon, Target, or Barnes and Noble on the website. And you can also sign up for my newsletter, which is basically just book kind of news, things that are going on in the industry. So if you're an aspiring writer or a reader, that'd be a good thing for you. And it's only once a month. It's not a whole lot going on there. And then my social feeds, you can also find me at Instagram on
Oh,
Amy Hagstrom Writes.
okay, fair enough. So as we near the end of our time together today, Amy, I'm curious about in your writing career as you kind of look back. What's your aha moment like from what your life was like pre writing or just kind of starting to think about, God, I really like this process to what you
Hmm.
have achieved today? What's been your aha
Hmm.
moment?
For me, on the writing side, I've been writing something or another since I can possibly remember. But it was a point during my travel writing career when I realized that what I loved most was grounding readers in a certain time and place, and how I wasn't able to do that to the extent that I really wanted to in travel writing. So whenever would have people when I was writing about travel destinations who would say, "We went to that place because of your recommendation," that to me was so gratifying because it made me realize I opened that option up to somebody who wouldn't have known about that place or wouldn't have thought of going there. So when I realized that place could be a character, then to me, that opened up the door to saying, I can still retain this ability to write about places I love and do it with fiction.
Very nice. And any final pieces of advice for our listeners? Some insight, could be a quote, a article that you'd like to share?
Oh gosh. Um, I would just say if you're looking to switch careers, just make the leap. It is scary, and there's always unknowns, but you'll never know if you're not trying, and if you're not doing something you love to do, it could be a, a hard situation to be in.
It's like an anchor on around your ankles when you're doing something you don't like to do. So,
Yeah, yeah,
very
exactly.
good. Well, Amy, it's been a pleasure to have you on the I was going to say on the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. I'm actually going to keep that in because, again, that's how you and I met through
In
the
another life,
OW.
I would have been on that one, yeah.
I know, and so I was really glad when you sent me the email. So, what are we going to talk about? Because I'm no longer doing this. I don't think I was aware of that at the moment, but I'm glad we were able to connect, and
Mhm,
definitely this is a great fit for the Career Focus series. And I truly
mhm.
appreciate you taking the time out of your day. And I would imagine for you now is one of the most beautiful places in the world,
Yeah.
and just kind of chatting about your career. And again, congratulations on your book, which is it's going to be ready in another couple weeks. So thank you
Getting
again for
close.
taking the time.
Yeah. No, thank you very much for having me. It's a great opportunity.
Very good. Listen, stay in the line. We're going to do a quick close, and you and I can have a final chat. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, folks. We have just been chatting with Amy Hagstrom. She is a fiction writer, and really just we're kind of talking in this episode of the Career Focus series on the Success Insight podcast, because Amy has made a shift from the hardcore outdoor writing space and travel writing, and now into the fiction writing, where she is able to use that earlier knowledge, that expertise about outdoor travel and adventure, and kind of really being able to inform what her new fiction novels are going to be about. And we're excited that her new book, her uh, the first of her debut novel, that was the word I'm looking for, Wild Between Us, will be out in November 7th, and you'll be able to pick that up wherever you get your books from, Amazon, Target, Barnes and Noble. Do go out to Amy's website at amyhexstrom.com. You can learn more about her and her work. You can sign up for her mailing list, and we'll also provide a link to her Instagram account as well. We also have some links to some of the stories Amy has written in the outdoor space, these hidden gem destinations, and there's an article there about what inspired this debut novel. And so lots of great information to learn more about Amy and her work. Now, as for us, you'll be able to find this episode on our website, successinsightpodcast.com. We categorize those episodes by various topics. This one will be categorized under the Career Focus series. So again, successinsightpodcast.com. We're also on LinkedIn and Facebook on our Success Insight podcast pages. And wherever you listen to your podcast episodes, just search for Success Insight Podcast. You can actually get to those directories by visiting us on our website. There's a great bunch of buttons up there at the top. Do let us know what you thought of today's episode by writing a comment for us, either on Amazon or Spotify. And you can also sign up on our website to be notified when we drop another Success Insight podcast episode. Okay, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day. And we hope to see you on a future episode of the Career Focus series on the Success Insight podcast. Take care now.